I remember sitting there in the processing, and something came out of my mouth that I didn't know I felt about myself. And I just remember saying out loud, who's gonna want me?
Welcome to the Mastery Experience. I'm your host, Francesca, and we are diving deep into mental mastery. This is where self-awareness meets peak performance. You're going to witness the truth behind personal development, emotional breakthroughs, dissolving triggers, getting into flow state, discovering purpose, and most importantly, mastering intuitive action. And we do this through a process called HypnoBreathwork. This is your community committed to breaking behavior patterns, getting into alignment, pursuing excellence, and self-mastery. Let's do the work. This is the Mastery Experience. Shout out to Huel for sponsoring and partnering with the Mastery Experience. Lindsey Marie, icon, queen, global community builder, top-rated podcaster, speaker, author, and founder of Powerhouse Women. Welcome to the Mastery Experience.
Wow.
You did that.
That's a laundry list. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
You created that. So we start every single episode off with a question from our Mastry Card deck. And this is actually the first card that came up today. And it says, what is your soul's deepest knowing that you often override?
Dude, we were just talking at dinner about that word last night.
I know.
That the purest truth is just love. Like it's all love. Everything, even the pain, is directing us back to love.
You're giving me chills right now. What do you default to prioritizing?
If I look back at even just like the conditioning, how I was raised, I actually thought that how I was operating was love, but it was actually fear. It was fear. It was, so even I overrode a lot of people-pleasing tendencies, or overrode isn't the right word. I've reprogrammed a lot of people-pleasing, a lot of things that on the surface look like love. Yeah. They look like prioritizing others, but it's actually, if we talk about even just people-pleasing, manipulative, because I couldn't be with the fear of someone disliking me or misunderstanding me. So I would change myself. I would abandon my own truth. I would not give people an opportunity to love the real me, because I was always operating through a context of who do I have to be so this person loves me? And when I look back now at all of the fear that was underneath that, I can see how it was never love that I was operating from in the first place, because I feel in my body now what it feels like to operate from love.
And I think that's just one of the things that I love most about you, is just your accountability and the way that you take ownership of what the roots of those things are. But can I tell you something about you that triggers me? Let me start there.
This is my favorite kind of conversation. Please, let's go.
Okay. So we both have the default conditioning of overachievement.
Yeah.
And I think it's been 3 or 4 years now, 4 years that we've known each other, I've watched you be able to slow down. And it triggers me now saying that to you. You've been able to slow down. You've been able to sit in the discomfort. And even if those moments of stillness, or what I would perceive as not being productive, not performing, not progressing, feel like a step back, they've obviously been kind of a slingshot, every single time. But your ability to sit in that space, it's hard for me to kind of watch you do it with so much grace. So I want to know, how did you start to dismantle the conditioning around performing?
It was not a linear journey at all. It took the complete unraveling of the life that I had built on performance in order to see myself clearly enough to see that I was suffering at my own hand. I was suffering by my own doing, in the belief that I was loved and valued based on what I was achieving. I was loved and valued based on what I was giving people. I was loved and valued based on not who I am, but what I was doing. And I literally could not see that pattern until it broke. And I was texting you this morning because, we had this beautiful dinner last night, and we get into all these conversations that we're having today. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about, I know we'll get into so many pieces of that unraveling process, but I was really thinking deeply about, what do I want the story about it to be? Because there's so much pain and suffering and heartache in it. And on the other side, there's so much beauty, there's more joy, there's actually more love and peace than I've ever experienced that I didn't know I was missing back then. Mm-hmm. And the insight that I had is how much everything that I was suffering because of was my inability to allow myself to feel the very things that I was judging others for, including I would not allow myself rest. So I was very triggered by people in my own business who weren't being productive. I was so triggered by my own unproductive habits. I was triggered by the relationship that I was in and what I perceived as really unproductive habits. And what has brought me to the other side truly and given me the sense of freedom that I can't actually even put into words. It's like a pure emotional freedom where I'm not bound by the things I was bound by before, to the extent that I'm almost having to relearn myself. I'm having to relearn how ambitious I really am, or what ambition looks like now, is because I have realized that what I was suffering from the most was my own inability to love myself, like from an inner child standpoint, if I wasn't productive. And it was wrapped in this belief that my worth, my actual value as a human being, came from what I was doing, not who I was being. And there just came a point where I don't think it was actually one moment. It's been this unraveling process of that identity that was built to survive in that way, to feel love in that way, that's brought me to this point now that I can see with such love and even such clarity that former version of myself. But it came through, and we'll get into the actual how that looked in reality, because it's easy to just say it in one sentence in a soundbite right now, but the freedom came from offering myself love and acceptance for the thing that I thought I could never love and accept about myself.
Man, there's so much. Okay, there's so much beauty in everything that you said, but it's also layered, and it takes layers of healing to get to that conclusion, right? So I want to kind of start back at the beginning, where I think a lot of people are right now, because here's the tricky thing about being ambition and doing the work that we do, is it is rooted in service. Mm-hmm. So it's very easy for us to feel like we're being noble and we're not doing it for our own external validation or proving our worth, right? So what does performing look like when it's from your ego?
Yeah. I think the simplest way to say it, again, looking at my past patterns and even patterns that show up now the question that I run myself through anytime I want to go after an opportunity, go to an event, reach out to someone, is, why am I doing this? Why am I really doing this? And if the answer is, I'll give an example. I got invited to something to celebrate a holiday with a friend who's very connected. Like, there will be very, very big name people at this celebration. And I found myself saying, well, I don't have plans, so I could be available for that. And then I just sat there and said, no, why would I be going? If I was going, it would be just honestly to see who else was there. Yeah. And I realized that that's a subtle example of how to catch myself in the pattern that I just am clear now I don't want to repeat. So it's not to say that there isn't a clean energy that I could still accept that invitation with. I just knew that in the moment the invitation came in, the first thought I had was, I just am kind of curious, who's going to be there. Yeah. I'm curious, what it would be like to connect with people who I don't normally connect with. And I knew that was not the reason. So I still have not accepted the invitation, because I wouldn't be accepting it from a place of non-performance. It would be some ego validation. It would be just to be able to tell my friends, like, oh my gosh, you'll never believe like who I was at this event with.
Yeah.
So that's like a micro example, but the question to ask that I ask myself, and if anyone else, as you're listening to this conversation, realizes I think it's just this big game. It's like this game that I play with myself to realize that when I'm operating from the place of needing someone to perceive me in a certain way, I'm just not actually operating at my peak performance. My peak performance is a clean energy that isn't filtered through how it's going to look to others. Yeah. Or you can tell when you feel an action is going to come with an ego boost. Yeah. You can feel it. It feels different. You feel very attached. That's also how I can scan for that energy, is I'm attached to a certain outcome. And I'm just now in the game of what would it be like to operate from a place where everything I'm doing just has the purest of intent. And sometimes that means I have to stop myself from doing something that everyone else would be like, girl, go do that thing. Yeah. Say yes to that opportunity. Go hang out with those people. Yeah. And instead, I have just, I don't know, I take it on, I'm going to keep using the word game because I'm realizing how much it transforms me. And you and I both went down a little bit of like the Kabbalah rabbit hole. And I remember when I was like really studying this wisdom, and it talked about how, you know, the problem with operating from ego, and ego just means it's like that part of us that wants to take control, and instead of surrender to an outcome, say, well, let me help you. Like, here, God, let me help you make sure I'm in the right place, I'm meeting the right people. How do we know that those are the right people? Maybe by me putting myself in a situation where I think, oh, it's going to feel this certain way to connect with certain people, or, you know, there's 1,000 different examples I could give. I'm probably shortcutting something that actually was meant to happen or fill that space, or maybe I was going to get the most profound spiritual insight of my life by staying home and not going, and then I shortcut it. So I think I'm just at the point of this game called life where I'm curious enough to see like what happens if I actually surrender to operating from that place of love, which for me means I'm not operating from fear. I'm not trying to protect myself. I'm not trying to control how others are perceiving me. What does that energy produce in my life? Yeah.
I mean, that definitely requires you to be still, right? It requires you to get out of the default reaction to just say yes and to sign up for the thing and to show up at the party. And I remember David Guillaume talking about this too, about him being at this party, and when he was thinking about taking the energy, like what can I get out of this? And then that didn't feel right. But when he thinks about being of service and what he can give, that's when he clocks himself, right? Okay. Getting to this realization that you were really judging yourself or producing all of your worth based on doing instead of being, sometimes, and most of the time, that requires a breakdown. That requires things to not go as expected, as planned, in your control, for us to realize where we're not loving ourselves, to see where we need to course correct. And I have to say, I think in the last 2 years, you've gone through really intense things in your personal life. And this is kind of when I knew that you were just built differently and you had a different mindset, because I've never seen anybody go through hard challenges like that in life with as much grace, depth, and curiosity as you did. So are you comfortable sharing some of your journey over the last 2 years?
Yeah, and thank you. I think that's the thing that I didn't realize what an opportunity it would be to build a depth of love for myself that I had never experienced, because I got to, and that's a perfect example, I cultivated this connection I have with myself now based on who I was being, how I was being in the face of something that just felt, I think, had someone showed me, you know, my life path and said, when you turn 40, you're going to have what looks on the surface like the ideal life. A partner who you've been married to for 13 years. We even had like the perfect dog. It was just, you know, this life that we had built. I was building a business that I truly love. I was, you know, there was so much about it that was in service. And building Powerhouse Women taught me a lot about the difference in how it felt. The previous business I was building in network marketing felt more driven by needing to perform in order to feel okay about myself.
Yeah.
Powerhouse Women from the beginning has felt different. And I think the lessons I had already started to learn from building that and overcoming things that no one else saw that happened behind the scenes, where I really met myself in the depths of my own patterns, my own conditioning, kind of prepared me for this moment where at the beginning of 2024, I had just turned 40. I went through my first major experience with grief. I'm so fortunate that I have not lost a parent yet. I haven't experienced grief in the traditional sense of losing a human connection that I really deeply care about. It was our pet. And the way that it cracked something open in me, I knew was going to teach me more about love than I had ever, that I thought I knew or had ever experienced. And on the heels of that, it was this complete dismantling in a very short period of time of, you know, a major shift in my business that now had me just feeling ungrounded, you know, that the path I was on now wasn't the path that I was on. There were some major shifts within that structure. And in the exact same span of just a few days, discovered that my partner of 13 years was having an affair. And it was a complete shock. It was not something I think people have asked, you know, did you know? Were there signs? I think what I now can see with such compassion is how differently we both dealt with grief and how differently our nervous systems processed that pain. But it also brought us to a point where it made us really honest really fast about what wasn't working within our partnership, that we were both operating on these old programs that until you're forced to confront them in a moment like that, and sometimes unfortunately it is a moment like that where something breaks, it makes you step back and say, well, how did we get here? Because it's easy for me to sit here and say, and I've been very thoughtful about how I want to share that story, because sitting here today, and I knew that I would get to a point, this was 2 years ago that it happened, I knew I would get to a point where I have just as much love for him as I have for myself, and I also take a lot of responsibility with the fact that I have a platform, and what I say about what happened reflects on someone who I deeply care about. So being able to just keep it to the facts of what happened. And then I think if people get caught up in kind of like the TMZ version of it, like what happened and who was it and all this, they're actually missing what I think I went through this in order to show people, which was the most profound journey of self-compassion, of finding that truth that even within that circumstance, there is so much more love now than I think there even was in the marriage. Not in the way people might think, and we'll dig into this, but I don't ever want it to be about the drama that I think the human mind can easily get pulled into. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think take like the drama and the details out of it. I think what the most important lesson is that you go through a devastating life situation, regardless of what that is. You know, trust is broken, or a love and attachment, a relationship, no matter how it ends, that's extremely hard. Yeah. Heartbreak is very hard. And you're going through a relationship of somebody that you loved for 13 years, that you had a deep bond and connection and trust with. And it's a little blindsiding, which hurts. And then you're also running a business, and you're also a leader and a mentor, and you're teaching us how to navigate life situations. And I want to talk more about how you moved through that with the perspective that you did. And most importantly, I think it was just such a testament to me and your self-worth. And I want people to be able to know that we're going to have really hard life situations, and we can choose to move through them and navigate them in a way that makes us stronger, which you did. So can you talk about just the process of how you healed?
Yeah. I was thinking about something this morning that I don't know that you and I have specifically talked about, that so in the realization, when I came to realize, and I think it's just such a testament also to the self-trust that I've built with my intuition. I knew that something was happening before I had confirmed it. And one of the best things that I did for myself, and I guess I don't know why I feel led to share this other than maybe someone listening needs to hear it, that there is never something bad that happens when we just take more space to process something before we act on it. I think there are times in life where immediate action is required. There's times in life where I needed to ground myself before I even could before I was even prepared to address that if what I thought was true, it was about to change everything about my life. I had no idea how much it would actually change about my life, my financial future, everything. And I had this intuition. One morning I woke up, and we used to have an investment property, a little cabin up north, and I just knew my intuition was screaming at me it was saying get out, which didn't feel like, run, but it was, when I sat with that, it was get away, get into your own energy. And I spent 4 days journaling, crying. I've never actually cried to that depth. I had never felt grief to that depth. I was almost grieving what I intuitively knew would be the end before I was able to go and confront the reality of it. I had to sit with this question of, why am I so afraid to be alone? I had to sit and meet myself in what are my actual fears? What does this mean about me? And if you would ask me, how did you know to start asking those questions? It truly just came from the relationship that I've built with myself and my own intuition and my faith, my spiritual practice, to know it was like I was having an out-of-body experience, to know that I was about to confront something that would alter everything about me. I mean, my name, my home, all of the financial resources, anything that I had assigned to feeling safe was gone. And I just knew that there was something, I felt, number one, this universal presence that I was so supported in it. I can't explain it. I just knew I was supported, and I knew that I needed space to start to process. So before I even confronted anything, I took that space, and I remember just saying okay, I'm gonna go back when I feel ready to hear the truth. I had to, I don't know. I just knew that I couldn't even hear the truth of what was happening until I sat with and grieved what I thought it meant about me.
Can we pause for 1 second? Because I think you said something that is so important, and I feel like it's the inflection point for most people and where they make their decisions from. What did you discover when you sat with, why am I so afraid to be alone?
Yeah. I didn't realize to the extent that I had a deep, deep fear of abandonment. Okay. And I think at the core of that is a fear that I was just unlovable, that I was unwanted, things that I didn't even know that I felt. And there was a conversation when I brought my suspicions and ultimately the evidence to my former partner. And I remember in that moment, you're processing something that your body feels viscerally, your mind is spinning because it just alters your sense of reality, specifically with any type of betrayal, because it took your entire view of life and what you thought was safe. And now you realize, you start to question everything. What is safe? Who is safe? And I remember sitting there in the processing, and something came out of my mouth that I didn't know I felt about myself. And I just remember saying out loud, who's gonna want me? And I don't think anyone who knew me personally would ever have looked at me and said, oh, that's someone who struggles with believing she's worthy or valuable. Because consciously I didn't, but clearly there was a wound that was being asked to be looked at and healed. And I even think, and I've thought about this a lot, I don't think that I could have actually accessed the level of healing I needed to access in order to find the level of freedom that I feel now, had it not unfolded in the exact way it unfolded. there were just so many elements to it. So, in that moment, I think realizing that there was so many deeper beliefs that when I journaled through, when I, as I was processing in the weeks afterward, noticing the things that came to the surface, like deep fears of, was I enough? Like beyond was I enough as a woman? Was I enough in my sexuality? Was I enough in how I looked? Like all of the conditioning and programming, even that society puts on us as women, all of it came rushing in, because every single one, it's like your brain scans when something traumatic happens, your brain scans to assign meaning. So my brain immediately reached for all the ways that I wasn't enough, all of the things that, it's taken 2 years to sort through everything that came to the surface that I didn't realize was running in the background of my entire life. It was running in the background of my business. It was running in the background of every friendship. It had me show up really inauthentically because I was so afraid that if people saw the real me, they wouldn't like it.
There's just so many great lessons that I want to just pull out from this experience, because this really changes the trajectory of people's lives, in my opinion. Because when it comes to, the fear of abandonment or having these really deep-rooted unconscious, subconscious beliefs that, am I lovable? Am I going to be wanted? That's what stops people from making decisions to choose themselves. But when you really dig into them and do all the things that you did, journaling is huge, letting yourself cry, trusting your own intuition. I think that those are the things that people should be doing when they find themselves in challenging situations. You dug into it. And what that ultimately reveals is, this is an outdated story. This is an old story. I can rewrite this narrative. I can recreate a new future. And when you kind of went through the layers, you ultimately chose yourself. You made that decision actually quite swiftly, I must say. What was it like then? Oh, one more thing I think that you did that I think is really beautiful is you went at your time. Like when you felt, okay, now I'm ready to confront this. I'm ready to hear the truth. Like you gave yourself time to prepare for that moment, which I think is also really clutch. And then you decided, okay, I'm going to move forward with my life in this direction that I had never thought or planned for. And then what was that journey like? I start every morning with breath work and meditation. I'm immediately in a creative flow state, and I get on my computer and I start banging out work. The next thing I know, it's already lunch and I haven't even eaten breakfast. Shout out to Huel for making sure that I'm still hitting my protein goals, because they have these delicious ready-to-drink meals packed with 35 grams of protein, 7 grams of fiber. We have 27 different vitamins and minerals. My favorite part, you guys, no artificial sweeteners, and it comes in so many delicious flavors, including this chocolate, peanut butter, and my personal favorite, the iced coffee. And if you're looking for something where you can add your own fruits and veggies to it, then check out the Huel protein. All the same nutrients, but you can make it a little bit creamier, a little bit thicker. Shout out to Huel for sponsoring the Mastery experience. And you can use our exclusive 15% off code. That's Huel.com/mastery. And Huel is actually now in Targets near you. So check them out. Shout out to Huel for supporting the Mastery experience. I want to tell you guys about something that has completely shifted the way I think about optimizing my health, and that is 3x4 genetics. You know how on this show we talk about mastering your mindset, mastering your performance, mastering your emotions? Well, what if you could master your physiology on the deepest level? They will analyze your unique blueprint. I'm talking about weight balance, muscle and skeletal, hormone health, brain, heart and vascular, blood sugar regulation, sensitivities, nutrients, cellular. It's a simple cheek swab that you can do at home, and results come back on their app in 3 to 4 weeks with actionable insights across nutrition, stress management, hitting your weight goals. If you are serious about performing at your highest level, this is the kind of intel that actually changes the game. Check out 3x4 Genetics and use code MASTERY. Now let's get back to the show.
Something that I didn't explicitly say about even what led up to that decision, or how I handled the immediate discovery and aftermath, is intuitively, I remember a question dropped in throughout that process. And it was just this simple question of what is most loving to me right now? Because I think in realizing, as I was processing specifically those days that I took by myself, I just started to see all of the ways that in a very codependent fashion, in order to make sure this person loved me and this person never left, I had not been very loving to myself. I mean, to the self-abandonment, to the extent of not eating, like going way past windows of when I was hungry. I wouldn't use the bathroom, like complete disconnection, overriding my body and what it needed, to the point that on a certain level, like my body didn't trust me. You know, it wasn't like I was starving myself, but I just would go, you know, I'd be working and I'd be like, who has time for food? I wouldn't pause and be like, no, this is an act of high self-worth. This is an act of self-love to pause and feed myself, not continue working through and being productive, because that's where I was finding my value. So I started running everything through that question of what's most loving to me. So the things that were the hardest, like that confronting that conversation, but also knowing that I wanted to do it in a way that when I look back 20 years from now, I'm proud of how I handled myself, even in the face of like such anger, such betrayal, I knew that I wanted to come from a place of openness, curiosity, compassion, instead of what immediately rose to the surface, which was everything you can imagine would come to the surface. So asking that question, and still to this day, of what is most loving to me, it's often having a conversation I would rather avoid, or I would rather know the truth. What's most loving to me is to know the truth and then decide what life looks like. What was most loving to me was to decide that I was going to allow this to be the thing that changed my life for the better. I didn't know how that was going to happen, but in that, and let me be so real, because I think this, when I share it from this standpoint, I forget, like, there were some very, very real, very authentic things that came to the surface. Because at first it sounded like, oh, motherfucker, watch me. You're going to watch me build the most. So it was more vengeful. It was more, I am going to show you what a big mistake you made. And you know what? I gave that part of me space to feel that way. Yeah. But at a certain point, I realized that when I sat with how that energy felt in my body, needing to prove, more performance, it actually when I tune into how it feels like it takes from my energy. It doesn't give me energy. So that's how I knew that, like, I was being ushered into a process of understanding through this, something I never would have chosen. I would never have chosen for him or I to go through this situation. And yet, there have been so many lessons in teaching me what it feels like to create actual freedom. And I wasn't free when I still needed him to suffer in order for me to be happy.
Girl, bars. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. But just to be clear, like, I did wish, like, I remember talking to my girlfriends and I was like, I mean, I don't want his whole life to crumble, but like maybe just like a light STD, just like a light, you know, just so anyone who's listening to this thinking like, oh, she's just a saint. No, I had all the thoughts you can possibly think, all of them. But at the end of the day, they didn't make me feel any better. Yeah. You know? No,
but that's the human experience. And I love how raw and real you are with it. It's like, you should experience anger, and not allowing yourself to experience anger from the betrayal of your partner of 13 years is bypassing. That's not the human experience. But what's beautiful is you dug into that, you know, you felt through it. And I feel like most of us feel like we want to avoid that pain and we want to avoid all of these emotions. So we just try to like skip over it or develop these unhealthy coping mechanisms. And what was on the other side of you being angry, being sad, being heartbroken, you know, finding the lessons in it for yourself was freedom. And now I feel like you're in this space where you really are coming out on the other side, emerged, like reborn, like your energy's, it's different, it's powerful, but it's more calm and it's more steady. It's kind of eerie. It's like this quiet, you know, like, and I can already feel it, like, especially in our conversation with dinner yesterday. But one thing that I think has been a superpower for both of us, and you've mentioned it a few times, is intuition, is a woman's intuition. what is the cost of not listening to your intuition?
I think it's unfathomable. It really is unfathomable how much we pay a price when we don't listen to our intuition. And for me, part of that journey was that realization of how cut off I was from my body, because my intuition really lives in the body. You know, when I noticed the places where I was tight, it showed me all of the places where, number one, I had a belief I had to carry everything by myself and not ask for help. My right side, which is tied to the masculine, is constantly, even still with all the body work that I do and all the training, I'm still unlearning that at a body level. I can know it in my mind, but my body still believes it has to defend and protect me, and it has since I was little. Or if something is off on my left, I sit and I at like my left side, which is typically tied more to our feminine energy. Where am I having trouble receiving right now? Where am I not resting? Where am I not allowing myself stillness? And I think that if we continue to not listen to our intuition, I do think it shows up in the body, which it eventually can even manifest into dis-ease, right? But the other cost to relationships, like I look now at how inauthentic a lot of my relationships were, because what my intuition was telling me was, hey, this conversation needs to happen, or there's a boundary that's been crossed, or you had an expectation that you didn't express, and that felt like death to me, saying to someone, you know, I had this expectation and it didn't get met, and now here's how I feel, here's the impact. I didn't have those communication skills. I didn't have them. No one taught me how to have those communication skills in marriage. So when I look at the ultimate cost of the places where I didn't listen to my intuition versus where I did in my business, complete intuition. I've really built Powerhouse Women completely on deeply trusting my intuition, sometimes to the point that it seems reckless to the logical part of me, but then looking at all the places where I didn't listen to my intuition most was in advocating for myself in relationships. So I didn't give people the opportunity to be in a relationship with the real me. I was giving people a version of me that I thought they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful, but it's also really interesting to see how we're masters in some areas of our lives, and then in others we're still really developing it. And sometimes we place weight on, well, I'm intuitive in my business, or I'm really high performing in my business, and we think that's the metric of growth. But really, your growth edge is the place where it's uncomfortable, where you're not operating at that level. For me right now, just when you said the word growth edge, and I think this is what's so beautiful even about our friendship, I notice I'm drawn to really strong women because I have had an underdeveloped ability to state my needs, to set boundaries, to say fuck off when I need to say fuck off. And so I think I'm just drawn. I've always been drawn to women who are more self-expressed. And now I'm realizing how much I love that I'm developing that in myself and really speaking my needs. So I think it's just the idea that the opposite is the medicine, you know, in the healing journey. And I know we didn't even come close to touching on what the full healing journey has looked like, but I've noticed how much the opposite of what my default programming is always my medicine. Oh, okay. That's really important for people to hear. Because in society, we also have been sort of taught, these are the measures of success. And I remember going through this when I was doing the Kabbalah. It's like, okay, well, I have perseverance and commitment and focus and dedication and resiliency. And I was like, so my areas for growth are lesser because those are the qualities that we look for in successful people. My growth edge is patience. My growth edge is love.
And stillness. That's
my growth edge is definitely stillness. But that's the thing that's, I think, interesting for people is growth isn't where you expect it to be. And I think we need to give ourselves more credit when we respond differently, when we react differently, when we are overcoming behavior patterns. That is such progress. You know, you're becoming a better version of yourself. But I think what stops us from hearing our intuition or feeling that body's knowing and discernment is this word that you brought up at dinner yesterday that I have not stopped thinking about, which is crazy that it came up in the card today, and it's override. It's overriding your system. It's overriding your body's knowing. So can you talk about what it looks like to override yourself, your knowing?
I think when I look back at those examples I shared about like overriding my hunger cues, overriding like my physical body, it had to start there for me. Especially as women, if we are not connected to our physical bodies, we are not connected as deeply as we could be to our intuition.
Yes.
And I had to look at all the places where I felt so triggered by slowing down. I felt so triggered by stillness.
You're attacking me right now.
I'm coming for you. I know what it feels like in the body to feel like that is physically not even just unsafe. It felt repulsive. And yes, it was tied to the performance. Yes, it was tied to all of that. But I think that when I really go back to the body cues, that was my first indication where I was cut off from my real power. Remind me what the original question was. Sometimes I go on a tangent.
Just talking about what overriding is.
Overriding.
Yeah.
I'm like, there was something else that came to mind. So then it's, when I look back at sharing some of my patterns, which were more people-pleasing, molding myself, not speaking boundaries, that was overriding. I would override anger because anger was usually a cue that I didn't have a boundary in place. But the piece that I didn't get to when I was talking about the healing, that this is the piece that unlocked the final freedom for me, was seeing how everything in my life was run through this deep need to be seen as good. Like conditioned from birth, growing up in the church, being the oldest daughter, being the one that I didn't have needs so that everyone else just didn't have to worry about me. And that from such a young age, I was overriding my truth.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to express my anger. That felt like the opposite of what a good person does. So this coming back to myself, first establishing that connection with my physical body so that I could even feel. I remember the first time I was like, I think I'm feeling anger. I think I think I need to go hit something right now. And, I told a girlfriend who I had gone and taken some space during the process and stayed at her house that they weren't staying at the time. I told her, I said, those pillows in your house had no idea what was coming. But it was the first time at 40 years old, the first time that I had a visceral connection to my anger, which so beautifully, right? I have a brand called Powerhouse Women. I didn't realize how not connecting with anger had cut me off from my true experience of my power, because it was all the things that I thought didn't fit the archetype of who I had to be, this good person.
Yeah.
And as I started to process layer by layer by layer, looking at all the ways that my psyche was set up so that I maintained goodness, even including, and I think I'm so grateful for my intuition being so clear with me that this was a story, everything that happened that would have a time and a place to be shared, which I just feel like I'm starting to have the voice to share it now, because I would have been sharing it before with the intention of, I'm the good person, he's the bad person. It still was to preserve the initial identity that I was operating under, which was goodness. And I didn't actually start to heal. I didn't start to connect with the depth of self-love that I feel now, and I think there's more for me to experience, until I started to say, let me look at everything I'm judging and also see where it's in me. Let me be willing to see where it's in me. So yes, is it easy to say, well, I didn't betray you in the way that betrayal could easily be seen in the way things ended? But then I started to look, okay, where do I betray myself? Where do I betray other people? Even just little things like I would betray his reputation in a heartbeat. I wanted everyone to know, and I didn't. I didn't share it publicly for this reason, because I knew I could feel how much my ego wanted people to know this is actually why it ended. This person is bad and I'm good. And anytime we have to paint ourselves in the victim role anytime we assign someone else anything outside of ourselves, the government, society, I mean, you name it. Anytime there's a villain, we are saying, I'm the victim and I don't have control over my own experience in life. And I knew I wasn't happy with that. So I shared this with you last night. I got to a point about a year into healing, layer by layer by layer. What's loving to me, coming back to my body, processing anger, allowing myself to feel, for the most part, not sharing with many people other than close friends, because the other thing was I didn't want to invite in other perspectives. I trusted myself. I trusted my intuition. I trusted my higher power to lead me through the healing process. And I got to a point where just when I thought I was kind of coming through a part of, I thought I was kind of finally completing this healing cycle, there was another layer to the way that the divorce unfolded, which essentially resulted in a complete financial reset for me, down to zero. And I remember sitting there and knowing what I knew at this point, saying to myself, okay, if this is still not complete, meaning this energy around the relationship is still not complete, meaning it's showing up in my 3D reality, there's another opportunity for me to see myself as good, him as bad. I was like, what am I not seeing? Like, why, if it's still showing up in my reality, there's still something for me to see here. And knowing, I remember when I would zoom out, I knew that 10 years from now, I would look back and the life that I would have created by that point, I would be able to look back with compassion, with love, with grace, maybe even saying it was the best thing that ever happened. And so I said, okay, knowing that time isn't linear, and in the quantum, anything is possible, if I can get there in 10 years, what would have to be true, and what would I need to give up today in order to feel that free in 1 year? And that was 1 year ago. And I sit here today free. But what I had, the answer, I did not want to be the answer, was I had to completely give up this good, bad, right, wrong. And I had to start to see what helped me to dismantle that was seeing that, you know, it actually is all neutral. It's all neutral. It's so easy to categorize things that we don't prefer as good, bad, right, wrong, or something that hurt me that deeply as bad so that I could reinforce my own story of goodness. But I started to have to look at where I am also an asshole, where I also don't actually always want the best for people. And I say that, I think that I want it to come across in the way that I feel it. It's not from a standpoint of, oh, poor me, or now I'm just using this to add shame on top of everything else. To just look with such neutrality at the ways that as a human being, the spectrum of all of it exists in all of us. Productivity and laziness exists. We, or I, we judge laziness because it's the part we feel like we can't accept about ourselves, or we're unlovable. So it's like, that's why I would project my own judgment of laziness on other people, or my judgment of their choices, because I wasn't willing to see, like, that is absolutely in me too. It's in all of us. That is what it is to be a human. No human is purely good. No human is purely bad. And when I started to pull it apart like that, I always imagine, the way I describe it is like you have a slinky and it's compressed and you can't see anything in between the little coils. But as you start to pull it apart, you start to be able to see space. You start to be able to see that there's more to this than I'm seeing. Like, what if I just looked at this from another view? Because when you look at a slinky from all different angles, it looks different. And as I started to look differently, again, with the commitment that what was most loving to me is I wanted to be free. I wanted to be emotionally free from the resentment, the anger, from the need to be a good person, because I knew that it wasn't just showing up in that relationship. Needing to be seen as good completely shapes how I show up online. I don't say really what I want to say because I'm like, is this going to be taken the wrong way? I set myself free by doing the work to answer that question. What would I have to give up? Who would I need to be? What would need to be true in order for me to be that free in 1 year instead of having to wait 10? And I think this is where even those of us who are personally developed, we don't realize that it's always within our control to collapse the timeline. It's always within our control. It's just going to look like leaning into the opposite thing that you think is true, leaning into the opposite thing that you want to look at in order to you start to look at the underpinnings of what is keeping that belief in place. And the more you look, the more it disintegrates. And that's horrifying to the ego, and it sets the soul free.
Oof. I think that might be the most empowering lesson I've heard you give, because when people come up against situations like this or betrayal, they're looking for closure from another person. They're looking for answers. They're looking for the apology. They're looking for accountability.
Yeah.
But what you did instead was you dug so deep. You dug so deep into your own stories. And I think that narrative of being the good girl and having to uphold that identity, by you getting to the roots of that and really dismantling it, it allowed your authenticity to come through even more and for you to tap into that freedom. And asking those questions is really what helps be a catalyst for that process. And everyone can do that. We don't need anybody else to do that or guide that for us. Now, one thing I know for both of our audiences, and I think it's part of our mission that we're trying to bridge the gap for, is teaching them how this healing and this self-development in personal areas of your life will actually impact your business. Because a lot of the people that we work with, they come and they want the business strategy. They want the marketing tactics, and they don't realize that these triggers that you're experiencing, these life situations, when you work on becoming the version of you that handles them with more release, with more truth, that's actually going to be the part that unlocks the ceiling in your business. How have you discovered that connection for yourself?
The way I always say it is, I didn't realize this at the time, but every time I ask for expansion, I'm simultaneously in that moment also asking to be shown where I'm limited.
Oh, yeah.
And here I was for years building my business to the point where I had hit a couple of years where I was like, I can't figure out what the block is. I consistently kept hitting a certain ceiling on revenue. I just couldn't see. I was like too in the jar to step outside and see the label. And so as I reflect back, in 2024, I remember feeling this energy of, I know that I can't see what's in the way. So I even said my word of the year in 2024, have I ever told you this?
No.
My word of the year in 2024 was surprise me.
Oh my goodness. Inviting a lot.
I don't recommend. But I also wouldn't take it back, because what I was saying is I surrender it. I can't see myself clearly. And I wanted the breakthrough in my business, but what it showed me was how the pattern shows up in my business, in my relationships. So when we can start to look holistically like that, it's easier said than done, but often my answers, my breakthroughs actually come from a different part of my life. And I think the reason for that is because I'm not as attached to the outcome, where yes, sometimes if I'm asking for expansion in my business, sometimes a system will break or a team member will quit, or all of a sudden you're gonna get the answer. It just looks like the thing that you don't want to face. It looks like you're being challenged. We don't often interpret that as the universe saying, no, go in this direction. This is your answer. It has everything that you need. It's like we expect that we're just gonna be delivered the result. Instead, we're delivered the exact life lesson that we need in order to produce the result. And then once you produce the result and you own it, you know you can reproduce that at will. And that's what we actually want. Again, the ego doesn't want that, the soul does. The soul is here for growth. So often, and now I'm able to see that with clarity I couldn't see before. When I ask for expansion, when I start to say, okay, what's next? Right now it's interesting correlation between both love and money. So I'm really focused on my business right now. And then when I will ask in meditation or breath work for a next intuitive action step, over the last year, it's been something in opening myself up to love.
I was just going to go there because I was thinking we have the actual perfect tangible example of what this looks like, because you made a very bold intuitive action on social media recently. And when we dig into it, there is a connection or a characteristic, a personality trait that is developed in that action that serves your business. What did you post on Instagram, Lindsey?
My one girlfriend texted me. She's like, you didn't even give me a warning. Like, I wasn't ready for it. This was just 2 weeks ago, a little over a week ago. So the marriage completed, I healed for over a year. And then I did do the apps and I dated for a little while. And even that was the intuitive action back then. I kept asking for lessons in my business, and then it kept pointing me to love. So I was like, fine, I'll do the apps. Fine, I'll do this course about calling in your king. And I just remember being like, ugh, because I was just so resistant to what the universe was trying to show me is your business expands when you keep your heart open. I mean, you know me. It's like this. Anyone who knows me, like, that is my superpower. If I can operate and create the boundaries and be in the world feeling safe to keep my heart open, fucking miracles happen. That's where I don't have to perform. I get to just be, and everything I want comes to me. So I am meditating the other day, and to put some context around this, the financial reality of the divorce really just kind of hit the finality of it, meaning I'm in a point right now that I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs talk about, how normal it is to go through these times where no matter how much your business is killing it, you'll reach points where you're like, okay, I've got to figure this out because I don't have runway to keep going. So there's a lot right now that could have me default back to fear and control and performance. I just now almost can't return to those energies. They're just not in me. So I sat down, I was like, great, I'll meditate instead. And I asked for a very clear intuitive action, knowing my intuition has been very clear for the last year. I need to be sharing more. I need to be more visible. I need to be not visible in creating content in the way that I maybe would have before or I see others. It's that heart connection. It's the vulnerability. There was a certain resonance that I knew I was meant to bring back to showing up online, because I really haven't been for the last year. And I said, okay, tell me what to post and I'll do it. You'll hear this about me. I am willing to say really bold things, and then I always regret when I get the answer, because I got this very clear vision of posting a video saying publicly that I'm single and I'm opening myself up to love and connection. And I was like, I am eyes closed, my Mastry eye mask on in meditation, and I just go, fuck you. I don't know who I was saying that to, other than I was like, no, not what I wanted. And I say that to bring you into these moments that, like, that is how everything, my whole body, nervous system lit up at the thought of it. It was such a visceral response that I remember knowing, okay, now I know I got to do it, right? So I sat with it, and I allowed myself to go through all of the reasons why the ego didn't want me to do that. What if this person sees it? What if that person sees it? It's such a pick me, trying so hard kind of thing. It was all these, I just listened to this vicious judgment, just vicious in my own mind. And I just I was telling you, I feel like I have this ability to allow my higher self, especially if I'm meditating and I'm really in that calm nervous system state, to observe the pattern, the program that's running. And just be with it and let it say what it needs to say. So I let it say everything it needs to say. And then I kind of just asked, like, okay, anything else? And I could tell based on the way that I was responding that there was going to be a breakthrough for it in me, or a breakthrough in that action for me. And I was curious enough to know what that breakthrough was. So I went through all the concerns. I decided I wasn't going to block a single person from seeing it. So whoever sees it, sees it. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that a little part of my ego would have to die in order to follow through with it. Mm-hmm. So it was a Friday morning. I had a day of calls and things like that. So I made the commitment I would post it before the end of the day. But I spent all day armpit sweating, just and then just allowed myself to get really clear. No, if I'm going to come forward with this, I'm only going to do it from this very heart-centered, authentic place of truly what I want in life. And this was what my intuition really was saying is, I want it all. I didn't heal this hard to only have a successful business. I'm coming for everything that I want in life.
Girl.
But in my logical mind, it was, okay, I've got to get this set up in my business, and then I've got to do this, and then that'll come later. Mm-hmm. And my intuition was like, time is not linear. Mm-hmm. Say what you want, claim it all now, let me handle the rest. So I did Frank's Titan Energy mini breathwork session. And I was going to give myself one take. I had 2 false starts. And then I was only giving myself one take. And I said it all the way through. I dropped into my heart. I just spoke from there. I completely blacked out. I don't even know what I said. And I posted it immediately. And I just let all of the ego that flared up, all of the fear of what are people going to think or whatever, I let it all come to the surface. I went to the gym. I moved the energy. So now I'm learning how to work with my body. I know how to deal with when my nervous system gets really activated by vulnerability, because I know the version of myself I want to bring to the world is vulnerable. She has her heart open. She's willing to share the stuff that another version of her wouldn't have shared. Yeah. So I get to now practice working with my body, using tools like breath work, using tools like meditation, physical activity to move the energy when it comes up. And a girlfriend of mine I was texting with her the next morning, and she's like, how do you feel right now? Because I think all of my friends were like, damn, that was not what we expected. And I said, you want to know the best part? The entire intention was to declare that something I am calling in this year is love and connection and deep, deep spiritual partnership. And in that aftermath, waking up the next day, once I had moved the energy through, I had never loved myself more. In the absence of, I'm still very single, you know, in the absence of any result that we think that intuitive action is tied to, you get the very thing that you want because you break through the fear. You step through fear, and then you get to love yourself more. You feel more abundant. You feel more on purpose. And as much as I could have written a book on those principles, I still have to come back and remind myself over and over and over again that that is the game. It's the game of, I know I'm here as a soul to evolve. I know I'm here to understand transformation on the deepest of levels. I now get that that is why my soul chose to come here. So I get to keep expanding and looking at what is the next evolution for me, and know that in declaring that, I am asking to be shown everywhere that my current identity doesn't match that. And the more I've started to understand that, the more neutral I can feel about the breakthroughs, meaning the performance. I've neutralized a lot of that dopamine hit. I really have. Now the breakdowns feel equally neutral. And that is actually what sets me free. That is what has given me, so this was only a week and a half ago, the most insane clarity in my business, the most unbelievable vision for the messaging and all these things that I felt spiritually constipated in. These things that I kept asking for answers in that, but then I would get this bold intuitive action in another place thinking, well, no, what does that have to do with my ability to fill my retreat or launch my event? And it was like the universe is saying, this is what it felt like. Do you trust me? Oof. That's what it is. When we're given that intuitive action that doesn't seem to connect, it's really a trust exercise. And trust is the ultimate spiritual warfare tool for those of us who know that we both have like a deep 3D world purpose, just like you and I do. But that is ultimately, the way I see it for myself, ultimately just one of the playgrounds, my relationships being another one that I'm really here to develop spiritually.
Yeah. I mean, again, just so many great lessons in that. And I love that you really broke it down and took us through the different emotions that you had, because to me, that is mastery. That is self-mastery, to overcome yourself.
Yeah.
To overcome your ego, to sweat, to have the negative thoughts, to hear yourself have all of these judgments. We all go through that process. And I feel like with both of our audiences, they think that we're not overcoming these challenges, or that it looks fly easier. Through life. Yeah. Like we don't feel those same emotions. And the difference is we feel them, we breathe through them, we meditate on them, we work out, we move the energy, and then we do the hard thing. We take the action. We become the identity of our next level. And it's not easy and it's not pretty. And in entrepreneurship, it is frequent if you are building something big. And most people, in my opinion, they stop too soon. Like the fear just feels so heavy. And I think that's why I'm so obsessed with the intuition, because that's when I know it's just right. I don't know how it's going to play out, what the outcome is, but if it comes through and I do the thing, then I'm building that trust within myself. And so I have to ask the question of, you building Powerhouse Women and putting on these events and staying so consistent in your podcasts and in your retreats. Like, what does that really take? Who do you have to become to build a business like that?
You said a really powerful word, and I think it comes back to this. It's self-trust. That's who I had to become, is someone who could trust myself with a big vision, because I follow through on the small things.
We talked about this yesterday a little bit, and I believe that we both have like true, genuine, deep-rooted confidence in ourselves. And I know that, at least for me, I feel like you did the same thing. I really treated it like a skill. It wasn't necessarily just some genetic gift that we have, but it was keeping promises to myself every single day. And as an entrepreneur, you don't have somebody who's looming over you with the deadlines and making sure that you're not procrastinating and you're taking the actions that you said you were going to do. But because I developed that relationship within myself every single day, I know that I will follow through. I know that if something hard happens, I can move through it. I have that really insane self-trust. And I feel like and intuition's the same. Intuition and confidence is the same. We build it like a skill. Yeah.
The other side of it, this just landed as I was hearing you reflect that back. It's the self-trust, but then the other piece is detachment.
Yeah.
The business can thrive because I don't need it to achieve something in order for me to be okay. And I reached a deeper level. It really was always like that. I knew what that energy felt like because I had experienced it in my business. I had experienced the opposite of it in my previous business, where my results were completely tied to how I felt about myself. So even I remember at kind of the, let's call it like the rock bottom moment of everything dismantling, I remember even praying and saying to God, like, if you need to take this too, can you just do it swiftly? But I really meant it. Like, it was truly surrendered to say, if this isn't my authentic path, make it clear.
Yeah.
I'm good either way. I know that I clearly have a purpose here. I wouldn't be put through the size of the trial that I was being put through. So what it's allowed me to do is come back to the business in a slow isn't the word. It's in a true posture of surrender, but willing to take very intentional action when I'm prompted to.
Yeah.
And it was starting to feel almost, when I'm saying I sat down and I meditated and I asked for that direction, I knew that I kept getting the prompt that the direction, my next step was to show up, to let people connect with me. And it was the thing I was resisting. And I know enough, the energy that I start to feel when I'm resisting something, what happens is if we keep dreaming really big, and then the universe is saying, here's your next action step, and now you know the action step, but instead you're listening to the fear, you're defaulting to the program, you need to look good, you need to whatever, then everything else stops. You stop feeling momentum, you start overcompensating with more performance. It's like when I see how it all works now, I know too much to avoid. It's either I stop dreaming, I stop asking for expansion in my life, or I take the step I'm being given. I don't want another rock bottom in order to get that lesson. I now know that if I'm going to keep asking for expansion, I'm going to keep being given opportunities to step through something that feels like death in the moment, but ultimately it'll set me free.
Yeah. And I feel like that's part of the reason we connected. And I will say that 4 years ago, we were more in our ambitious identities, and maybe it was more of like a trauma bond connection, but you appreciated the breath work and you brought me into your community, and obviously you're elite at community building, and there's been so much synergy with your community that I've felt, and a lot of your audience has become hypnobreathwork coaches. In fact, you got certified in Amsterdam to do hypnobreathwork. How has the breathwork helped you in your personal and your business?
I actually want to say this for anyone listening who you've seen people get certified or they've heard you talk about it and think, well, that's not really something I would ever use. I showed up to the breathwork certification in Amsterdam sitting around with these world-class breathwork coaches, amazing people. And I had never done breathwork consistently 4 days in a row. So I knew that there was something, number one, for me to develop within myself. But number two, I knew the power of mindfulness and having practices like breathwork to help me move energy through, to help me connect with my emotion. And I knew that I wanted to equip myself with a better understanding of how to help other people to alchemize their own lessons. And then I really got certified. And so this is for anyone who's like, I feel called to that, but I don't see how I would use it. I'm not planning to launch a whole hypnobreathwork business, but I lead retreats. I facilitate small group things. Even with my girlfriends, I'm like, oh, that would be so fun to create an experience where we could go deeper and really connect with one another over a breathwork session. So that was one of the reasons that I did it. But, you know, I think it was just one of those things that I didn't realize the power of my own breath. I didn't know how one of the most powerful tools that I have to regulate myself, to get back to clarity, to get back to that connection with my own intuition is my own breath. And in a world that wants to sell us everything external, this is the supplement you need to take, this is, you know, the device that you need. I think often the true unlock for our next evolution is often so cleverly hidden within ourselves because it's the last place we would look. And that's what it's been for me.
I am thinking back on some of your sessions too, and I think one of the reasons I love doing hypnobreathwork on you and your community is because, you know, the entrepreneurship journey is hard and it does trigger our, you know, shortcomings. But you get visions in your hypnobreathwork journeys. Well,
I really haven't for the last couple of years, meaning I feel like I've been stripped of vision in the way I used to get it in those initial breathwork sessions. And I'm being asked to feel it now. I'm more clairsentient, where I feel it, and clair, what is the one where you just know it? It's like an intuitive knowing. And I don't see it. I'm like, whatever that one is, that's the Claire that I have. I used to see things really clearly in breathwork sessions, but I haven't in a while.
Well, I remember I feel like it was at one of your masterminds.
Retreat,
and you were like buzzing after, and it kind of planted a seed for me where I felt like you were going in the direction of all of this, which I in my own experience with my visions in breathwork, I'm like 4 or 5 years ahead when I get those downloads, you know, but at least it gives me the North Star and the courage to keep going. But I'm going to be guiding you through a session today, a little one-on-one private hypnobreathwork session where all the songs came through to me. Is there anything specific I can bring into the session to serve you now?
That's such a good question. I told you last night how I feel like I feel like I reached this point in healing that I just had to declare that healing was complete. This layer of healing is complete. I think it's a lifelong unfolding. I now am shifting my intention, my focus, my meditation, my breath work into the embodiment of my future self. So wherever you take that, I fully trust and surrender the process to you.
I think it's perfectly aligned. So let's do it. Let's breathe.
Okay, that is so good.
It's delicious, right?
Oh my goodness, delicious.
Lindsey, how is your breathwork?
Hold on, let me just land back in my body into this solar system. That was, and you use this word in the session, that was the most fun session I had ever done. And I think what it helped me anchor in is the reason I've been working toward the point of freedom is that I'm really here to embody joy. Like, that is the ultimate frequency. That's actually one of the reasons that makes the Powerhouse Women event so magnetic, is because I'm in pure joy, in the creation of it, in how we craft the day. And so I saw this parallel of embodying that version of myself, embodying that energy in everyday life, which I joke, it's even, I put this on my dating profile when I was on the apps, that someone once came up to me after a panel discussion, and this complete stranger came up and she said, I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but you have the opposite of resting bitch face. You have like resting joy face.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And I do feel that. I feel that that's like the purest essence of my soul. It's love. What joy is essentially love embodied. Yeah. And that's what I felt in that session.
Oh my goodness.
That was delicious.
I played some songs I've never played before in that session.
It was good. It was like a whole girly pop moment too.
It really was. I know.
It was so good.
I played Man I Need, Olivia Dean, which I've never actually played in a session before, but I wanted you to just feel a partnership. I wanted you to step into that feeling. Did you see anything, or what did you feel? So in my meditations, I feel a very visceral connection to what that partnership feels like. What I felt added onto it was the fun piece. Yeah. I mean, that was what I loved about my former partner, was the lightness and the joy and the childlike energy that he brought to our dynamic. And when I think about one of the biggest lessons that I feel like I've gotten, even as I've downloaded as I've gotten back out there and dating, is I feel like the universe is saying, like, I'm not on a budget, girl. Like, ask for everything you want. So I want the depth. Who I am as a soul is I want the depth. But I'm very fun and lighthearted and silly and witty, and I want that match as well. So reminder to embody the fun piece. Yes. Yeah. That's so, because I switched the third song today, and I played Natasha Bedingfield Unwritten, which I've never played in a breathwork session ever before. And that word just was coming through, because when we're on the healing journey, it can be so serious and it can be so deep. Yeah. And then even when we're trying to embody emotions in meditation, it's like peace, it's love. And I was like, girl needs to have fun on this next chapter, you know? Like, that was coming through really loud.
Fun, and then in the last song, it's like fun and flirty Lindsey has entered the chat.
I love that for you.
I love her.
I love that for you. And then in the last song, I really kind of wanted to bring it back to everything. Like, you can have it all. Yeah. You can have the business. You can have the love. Any emotions, any images there.
Mm-hmm. You know this, because I've gotten this in breathwork before, but I've had a ping, if you want to call it, a vision of it occurs as a TV show. It always has. And I don't know if that's my podcast now, which I produce very much like a show, but I saw it more like, it looked like the set of Drew Barrymore's show. So maybe I'm on her show, or maybe, but it felt very much like I am essentially doing what I do at the Powerhouse Women event, but I do it in a very public way, whatever medium that takes. And and I've had that before, but it felt different this time. It felt closer. It felt clearer.
Yeah. That's the same energy of the HypnoBreathwork session I was talking about. One of the first ones I did with you it was like an energy of a talk show.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. And next intuitive action step towards your most aligned self.
So it's a continuation of what I've been doing, which started with the ping to share that really vulnerable video, and then thereafter showing up every day. And what I saw was, let people see all sides of you. So even so silly, like before I came over here today, I filmed a little video. You know, I love fashion. That's something my friends really know about me. Just of like these silly little sleeve holders to give you like the perfect puff sleeve when you roll up your sleeves, and just sharing more all the sides of my personality, because I really want to bring the depth to my own platform. It was like, allow people to fall in love with you, all sides of you. So I saw this vision of just bringing all of me, the vulnerability, the depth, no makeup in videos, full glam in other videos, like the full spectrum of me. Because if I think about the same energy that I want in my business is the same energy that I want in love, is I want to feel so free to be all of me and allow someone to love that, allow my community to love that. And I think there are parts of me that unknowingly I was holding back. And needed to while I was in the healing process. But I think it's just time for me to give people the opportunity to love all of me.
Oh my goodness. I mean, just from hearing your story from where you've been in the last 2 years to now truly emitting joy and growth and love and all the things, and then how it pertains back to your business. This was truly a masterclass, and I hope that people are really listening and applying the lessons and then doing the exercises, doing the deep work, because they can also obtain this level of confidence, of freedom, of peace, and of alignment. So thank you so much, Lindsey, for sharing your story with us. Any closing remarks, or tell people about, you have an expanders retreat coming up?
Yes, I don't know when they'll hear this, but
before that,
you know, the thing that I'm now clear this journey has taught me is essentially how to walk people through the process of aligning their identity with the life that they want, and if they choose to, collapse time between the two. I've always been really interested in that process, and in a way, that's also what we embody at the Powerhouse Women event, which is in August. It's so much fun. You've been there. You've been to all of my events, but the more intimate one that I lead is a retreat called Expanders. It's specifically for 6- and 7-figure business owners, because what I realized is, you know, there's something really special about the point in entrepreneurship as a creator where you realize, oh, I can create something to this level. And then so many of us, ourselves included, hit this point where we can't see beyond our patterns, so we think we need to do more of the same in order to get to the next level, when it's often so much more about who you're being than what you're physically doing. So I really create these immersive experiences to help people viscerally connect with their higher self, see more clearly what's in the way, and embody on a new level where they can feel it, they can really connect with it, so that when they go back into their life and their community and their relationships, they now understand how to connect the dots, and then they're supported by a community of other women who are on the same journey. Because that, you know, we didn't even get into that in this conversation, but as you're transforming, it impacts all of your relationships, and some of them weren't meant to come into the next chapter with you, and that could be really hard. There's a lot of grief. That's why I am passionate about curating spaces where people can find those who align with the version of themselves that they're becoming, because that ultimately is one of the pieces we didn't touch on, but one of the things that helps you collapse the timeline is aligning with other people who are supporting and seeing you as the version of yourself you want to become.
And I've been in the room of your expanders retreats, and they are, I mean, it's just electric, and you can just feel the transformation that everyone's making. It's like an upgrade on a cellular level. So we will link to all that in the show notes. And if anybody at home wants to do a similar HypnoBreathwork session to what Lindsey just experienced, we actually have a Powerhouse Women session.
I love that one. I go back to that one all the time.
Becoming undeniable, I think. So we'll include that here too. Lindsey Marie, thank you for being on the Mastry Experience.
This was so much fun. Thank you.
Shout out to Huel for sponsoring and partnering with the Mastry Experience.